Smile.
But I'm not happy.
People
Why are you
staring.
I don't want to do this.
You have to. They'll know
No one
something's
cares
wrong.
about your
Why
life.
is that bad?
Nobody cares. They won't understand.
Nobody
You want to go
cares.
home. You'll hurt their feelings.
This was ridiculous.
What are we even
Just
talking about?
like,
Just
just
want to
keep
keep them
them
happy.
happy.
What if they
They're
think
gonna
you're
be
stupid?
mean.
Just keep them happy. Just keep them happy.
Just lie.
I'm not here to sugarcoat, life's already a bumpy road. Too much shelter causes pain, let's just be real honest. Things are gonna knock you down, avoidance will not help you out. Let's talk it through, here me and you, let's keep it real honest.
Hey, welcome to Real Honest. This is the podcast where I share candid thoughts and feelings about life, love, and relationships, God and church, adulting, the workplace, and everything in between. I'm your host. My name's Samantha, and you may not always like me, but I'll always be honest with you. Okay, what is with this obsession with doing anything every day? I feel like all the content creators say if you want to be successful, you have to post content every day. Fitness influencers are saying if you want to lose weight, you have to work out every day. If you want to learn to play an instrument, you got to practice it every day. If you want to be a writer, you've got to write every day. And can we just normalize that is not realistic? Like, if you're only interested in doing one of these things, like if you have one main thing that you're trying to do every single day, you're probably going to be successful. But I would imagine that most of us have more than one thing that we're working toward. And the idea that we would ever do all of these things every day is not even possible. And then you have to take into account that in addition to all of these things that you want to do for yourself, you also want to be a good family member, parent, child, sibling, whatever it is. You want to be a good friend. You probably want to be good at your job. And all of those are going to have different tasks that someone's telling you that you need to do every single day or you're not successful. And even if you're someone who has sat down and thought about this and you've told yourself like, okay, I know that I cannot do all 37 of these things every single day. So I'm going to try to do, maybe these 7 things every day and then these 10 things once a week or whatever it is. Even if you're a person who has sat down and planned all of that out, you still have to think through like, how am I going to prioritize these things? And my priorities are not always going to be the same. So how am I going to evaluate when and how to shift things around? I have a ton of different things that I'm trying to work on that I have been struggling for years to make time for. And I think in spending the time in recent months evaluating why I kept not making time for these things, like, was it that I really didn't want to do them? And it was more just that I have boundary issues and I'm always putting whatever somebody else asks me or needs me to do, I always put that in front of anything that I'm doing just for me. And it was actually kind of nice when I was sad the other week and just did not have the energy to talk to anyone about anything. And I just straight up started ignoring people and not responding to messages. I was like, I have a whole lot of time for myself and it's kind of great. And then my favorite thing that Taylor said when she was on New Heights was that you should treat your energy like it's expensive and not everyone can afford it. And I feel like that's really what I have been trying to talk about here, like since the first episode, I think, and just talking about with friends and trying to teach people and figure out how to do for myself and implement in my own life, and just didn't quite have like that specific language to describe it with. In part, it's about setting boundaries. And I watched a TikTok last week that was explaining how boundaries are about your own behavior and not other people's behavior, which I have found really helpful because after I watched it, like I had so many different conversations that week where I was just like, oh my gosh, I just saw this TikTok, let me help you. Because I feel like my friends and I are constantly like talking to each other about things like, hey, there's this person in my life who keeps saying or doing XYZ. And I have told them repeatedly that I'm not comfortable with it or I don't want to do that with them or whatever. And they keep doing it anyway. And I'm like, well, what I learned from this therapist on TikTok is that setting the boundary is not about you saying, hey, I don't like it when you mention XYZ to me. The boundary is if you mention XYZ to me again, I'm going to end the conversation. I'm going to end the call. I'm not going to respond to you. I'm going to close the text and move on. Like, it's about what you're going to do if they continue the behavior that you're not okay with. It's not about you controlling their behavior. So in part, that's what I want to explore today. But then the other piece of it is understanding that every decision that you make is going to cost you something. Like every time that you set a boundary, right? The other person is going to respond in a certain way to you holding to your boundary. And in that case, you have to ask yourself, what are you going to do? Right? Like if you ask the person, if you say like, hey, I'm going to end the conversation if you mention that, and then you hang up on them and then they get pissed off at you and they cry or they yell or whatever, is that going to make you just go right back into the conversation and then never hang up on them again? Or are you going to be able to hold to that? If your boundary is that, you have a friend who needs way more of your energy than you either are able or willing to give them, and so you say like, hey, this is what I can give you, and that's my line. I can't give you more than that. That might cost you the friendship. Are you okay with that? So starting with my goals check-in, this first week of September, I am absolutely crushing it. So far, I have worked out every day, I have eaten healthy every day, and I have worked on my book every day. But I'm not expecting myself, it's been 5 days. I'm not expecting myself to continue that the whole month. I like that the month is off to a good start because I feel like I'm going into it with positive energy and I'm really excited about things. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that work has been really slow this week, so that has required less of my energy. I'm coming off of a week where I was ignoring everybody and like not having the same number of conversations that I'm used to having in a week. So I very slowly started responding back to those. So I'm still getting less messages back. So I've kind of slowed down the communication that I was having with friends and coworkers naturally. That conversation died along with like just this being a slow week for us at work. But that's given me a lot of time back. So that's a big reason that, and partially having that much time, I've been able to rest a lot more, which has given me more energy to be able to work out every day. And I also have gotten really, really inspired just last weekend with my book. And so I think I had like a 6-hour writing session on Monday and a 5-hour on Tuesday and a 3-hour on Wednesday. And I've just gotten so excited like with each passing day. But I had to keep like pausing at the end of each night being like, I'm super glad that I got that inspired. I'm super glad I had the time and the energy and then I got that done, but this is not sustainable to be a daily thing. And so I'm just trying to keep tracking that in the back of my brain so that I don't get upset next time 5 weeks go by and I don't have time to write it all. I feel like what God is teaching me through this is that I require so much more rest than I think that I do. I can't remember if I told you guys or not. A while ago, I was working on like really cultivating my weekly Sabbath, like that full 24 hours of rest. And I was talking to my therapist about it, and she pointed out kind of how I was working so hard on resting for 24 hours that I was overstacking the rest of the week so that I could have nothing to do and feel fine laying down and doing nothing. But it was really having the opposite effect because she was like, you need to rest every day and you're trying to stack every single thing that you have to do. You're trying to be busy from the second you wake up to the second you go to sleep for 6 days so that on the 7th day you can lay down. And that's not how it works. Like you have to lay down every single day. And a big part of that is just being a perfectionist. Perfectionism tells me that I can accomplish way more than I actually can. So a lot of times when I'm planning out my workday, I will put tasks like back to back on my calendar from 9 to 5 because I'll be like, oh, that shouldn't take me more than 30 minutes. But inevitably, every single time I get to the second or the third task and it turns out that I don't have everything that I need to do it. So then I have to pause and ask somebody and that person's not online. And then I have to wait a couple hours for them to get back to me. So I move on to something while I'm waiting for their response. And then it turns out that's another thing that I don't have everything that I need to work on. And it's just a domino effect. And so at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I thought I was going to get these 14 things done today, and I only actually was able to finish 4 of them. But it's also the kind of thing where if you have meetings back to back all day long, you don't have any time to get any work done. So I've started to take the opposite approach at work to where I'm limiting the number of meetings that I will take in a day. And I'm also limiting the number of tasks that I will agree to complete in a week. And if I get them done early, then I will start working ahead. But I always plan to be like, I realistically can only do these 3 things today. And I think just slowing down and doing less overall has helped me notice like how much energy it takes to have a conversation. Like I really struggle with my relationship with my boss. We just have totally different styles and we look at everything differently. We're approaching it just from different brains with different information. And so having a conversation with him takes a lot of energy for me because I have to work really hard to try to figure out where he's coming from and how to translate where I'm coming from into language that he can understand so that we can be on the same page. So the day that we have our one-on-one, I don't schedule any other important meetings because I know that so much of my mental energy on that day is going into that conversation. if I have to have a hard conversation with somebody on my team, or if I have to report like somebody else's behavior to their manager, those are things that I can't do like back to back coming out of a different meeting. Like I need a good half hour to prepare for the call, and then I need a good half hour to rest after the call, and just learning that all of this rest time needs to be built into the day around the thing that's going to take the most energy. What does it mean to treat your energy like it's expensive? For me at work, this looks like not responding to people right away and not saying yes to every single task that people ask me to do. This is counterintuitive to how I have operated in every job since I've started my career, because I'm a perfectionist and I like having a reputation of being somebody that is reliable, somebody that is fast and consistent and correct. Like I like being the person that people know that like when I ask Samantha a question, she's going to answer me immediately. The answer is going to be accurate. It's going to help me get what I need to get done, and I'm going to move on. But what I haven't realized over the years is that doing that has also given other people that I work with the perception that I'm always going to drop everything and I'm always going to be there. And that's what I've been doing. Like I've been dropping whatever it was that was on my plate so that I could help them do the thing that was on theirs. And it made them feel like they were more important than me. So it was just me constantly giving and people constantly taking from me and me not getting anything back. And I was worried that if I took a little longer to respond, or if I said like, I can't get to that this week, I'll address it next week, that people were going to go to someone else. But that actually hasn't happened. Like they've been like, all right, let me know when you can get to it. And it totally has not been a problem. And people are now no longer expecting me to respond right away. So if I do have some time later in the day, then it's like I got back to them quicker than they thought. It didn't take me a whole day, but I also didn't have to drop what I was doing to give them my energy right then and there. With relationships, I think it looks like limiting how and how often and for how long you speak to someone based on how much energy you have to give that specific person in the specific setting. If someone is calling to unload on you, or if they need you to show up and hold them because they're sad and you are not in the emotional space to do that, then don't do it. Sometimes it looks like not even responding. You know, just because somebody has your phone number does not mean that you are required to answer them. Now, obviously, I can't just ignore my boss or the leadership team at work, right? Like I'm being paid to do a job, and if they are looking for me or need me to do something, I do need to respond. But I don't necessarily need to respond in the same moment or even the same hour that I get the message from them. Like I can flag it and respond later when I have time. I've mentioned a lot on here about how it bothers me that I feel like a lot of my friends don't have time and energy for me as consistently as I do for them, because I have a whole list of people that like whatever they need, I do not care. Like if they are crying, if they want support, if they want to laugh, if they want to just shoot the shit for 10 minutes, I am like, whatever this person needs, I am dropping everything and answering the phone every time they call. But that is because that person is one of my best friends and they mean the world to me. But I don't give that energy to anybody. If I'm going to treat my energy like it's expensive and not everyone can afford it, right? How am I identifying what the price is and who can afford it? It's the people who have put the time and effort into going into deep relationship with me, people who have built trust with me over years, people that have been consistent, that I've been consistent in their lives. We've both been to therapy. We have a language with each other and an understanding. These are my very, very close friends. They can afford my energy any time of day. People that I do not know well cannot. I mentioned this last week, I think, but this is a large reason of why I had to step back from volunteering. So right when I finished college, I was volunteering with my sorority for a few years as an advisor to a few different chapters. And one of them, it wasn't a big deal. It was really small. Like I hardly got any phone calls, but when I did get phone calls, it was from parents that were freaking out because their daughter hadn't told them that dues were due and they missed the deadline and now they were being charged a late fee. And it's like grown women would call and scream at me because they had been charged a late fee. And I'm sitting there like, I did not charge you the late fee. All I did was send a reminder email to your daughter to let her know when it was due. And I'm sorry that she didn't forward it to you so I can connect you with international headquarters so that you can talk to somebody who actually can remove the late fee or tell you that they can't. But like it was too often that people were screaming at me about this stuff that I was like, I don't know you and I don't want to know you. Like this is not worth my time or my energy. And then I got transferred to advise a much larger chapter where probably on a weekly basis, I was getting 5 or 6 emails from girls that were complaining about like, I need to switch rooms. My room is too cold. My roommate is awful. And it was just very like, again, I didn't know these people and it was just flooding my inbox with things that I needed to address or do. The girls had a bat problem in their house and I was like, I don't even live in that state. And the fact that I am sitting here researching how to get these bats out of your attic is not what I want to do with my time. And then I was volunteering with my church where I was overseeing around 150 small group leaders. And so that was 150 people who had access to email or call or text or message me. And I feel like Christians in particular have problems with boundaries just because part of being a Christian is that we are generous and kind and we want to help people. But then there's that issue of like, you give somebody an inch and they'll take a mile, and the whole like, oh, well, we're supposed to turn the other cheek. And like, this is not a theology podcast, so I'm not going to go into what I think that means. But people have a lot of problems, and especially at a church the size of mine, like you hear so many different stories of people like really in pain and people really needing support. And I absolutely like wanted to be there and support them. But I was like, I am one person and I also have a job and a family and friends and my own small group that I lead. And I just cannot be available this many hours of the day to counsel so many people that I don't even know and that I'm really not building relationships with. The other thing that I had to learn was that a lot of these people were feeling closer to me than I was to them, because if they had an issue with somebody in their group, it would get escalated to me. I would do the mediation conversation between the 2 members of the group or the 2 leaders or whatever it was, and we would work through the thing, and then, we'd move on and they'd continue leading their group. And so because I came in and listened to all sides and tried to be an impartial third party and helped them through the issue, they then felt connected to me. I think similar to how I feel connected to my therapist, right? Like, she's not my friend, she's my therapist, but I love her and I think she's awesome and I feel like she's my best friend. But she has a bunch of clients, right? And we probably all feel that way about her. And at least we have the boundary where we only talk to her for the hour that we're paying for, however often we see her. And the problem with volunteering is that there's really no set time like that. I guess the time was I had to create it for myself, right? But I wasn't being paid to do this. But so for the person who had the problem, they now feel like we have this connection, and maybe they reach out to me a few weeks or a few months later if they have a similar issue or another issue, or they say, hey, you really help with that thing. Can you help with this thing? But what they don't understand is that I have 150 people doing this on a regular basis. I would say out of the 150 people, I probably had 20 to 30 reaching out to me every week. So it was never all 150, that would be absolutely insane. But it was so often that I was not developing connections with these people. I was it became a very cause and effect job to me. It was a problem would come in, I would address it, I would get it out of my inbox, and I would move on. Whereas these people were feeling like I'm now involved in their life, I'm another person to keep in touch with and to know, and that wasn't sustainable for me because it was too many people. And for me, I think this first manifested as anger. Like I started to get really frustrated and angry with people who kept reaching out to me and kept wanting to talk. And I felt like I was not getting anything out of these conversations. But then I thought about it and I talked to some people and I realized like, well, they are getting something out of this conversation. They feel like we're friends now. So even if somebody was calling to say like, hey, can I just set up a Zoom meeting? I just want to catch up with you. They were viewing it as like catching up with my friend, and I was viewing it as work. And then I had to face the fact that like I didn't even have a right to be upset with any of these people, because I was like, I accepted this volunteer position. I've been doing it for years. I agreed to do this and I never say no. Like every time somebody wants to meet with me, I am always agreeing. I'm always taking the call. I'm always taking the Zoom meeting. Like I'm spending I'm having more meetings in a day, like with people involved with my church than I am with my actual job that I'm paid to do. And like, that's just not what I want to do with my time. And I have given everybody this access to me. Like I have allowed them to call and email and text me anytime. And I've given them my time and my energy because I want to be helpful and I want to support them and I want them to be counseled and to have all of the information that they need so that they can go out and lead successfully. But it just became that I was spending all of my time pouring into so many people and nobody was pouring into me. So I think once you decide that your energy is too expensive for some people and you're going to have to raise the price and you're going to have to set some boundaries, you also have to ask yourself, what is the cost of this? I volunteered with my sorority because I really wanted to make friends. I didn't really make friends when I was in the sorority as an undergrad, and I had paid a lot of money to be a part of the sorority and I wanted that to be worth it. So I figured like, I paid this like lifetime fee to be in this organization. Like maybe if I stay involved, maybe eventually it will feel rewarding enough and it will feel worth the money. So the cost for me of stepping down and like really no longer being a part of that organization at all was that I don't feel like I ever got what I put into it. I don't feel like I ever got what I was promised when I first joined. And now I'm okay with that. It was a little bit of a process, but I had to just accept like, I'm never going to get what I want from this. Let me just cut my losses and move on. With my church, the cost was a lot higher because it was probably over half of my community for the last 5 years, where it was like I'm leading a small group. I'm also a member of a small group, but I also am part of this group of volunteers that leads all of the other small group leaders. So I had all of these meetings where we would just plan stuff and get together, and like we would all get together in person once or twice a year, and I loved going on those trips, and all of that was really fun. And that was part of why I did it for so long, because it was kind of like having to have all of these conversations week to week with people that I wasn't feeling close with, but I did still feel rewarded because I was helping them. There were other people within the church that I did build close relationships with and I did become friends with. And I had, I had church meetings so often that I did enjoy. And that was something to do with my time. It was something that felt rewarding. It was something that gave me a lot of friends and my primary community. So I did wrestle a lot for a long time with, okay, if I give up this role, am I also going to have to give up most of this community? And what's been interesting is as I stopped attending all of the meetings and stopped leading the small group and stopped attending a small group, it was interesting to see like which friendships I had formed that nothing changed with. Like there are people that like I still talk to on a regular basis, that I still meet with on a regular basis. Like some people that I was like, essentially you can think of it as like a boss employee, like weekly one-on-one. Like we had those like set up in the volunteer organization at my church. And there were some of those that I kept on the calendar because I had become friends with the people that I was leading. And we wanted to keep in touch. And there were other ones that like fell off the calendar because it was very clear that like we were only having this meeting because we had this relationship within the volunteer role, and that is now gone. So we don't need to meet anymore. So I don't feel like I've lost any friends in stepping out of that volunteer role, But what I have encountered quite frequently is people that I viewed our relationship as like a working relationship, and they viewed it as a friendship, to where I've had to be like, I'm so sorry, I don't see it that way. And those conversations have been really difficult to have. So moving into my hard conversations of the week, I've had like a good amount of people that are still involved with my church. I'm also still involved with my church. I still consider myself a member. I'm just not volunteering, at least for this season, the time being, whatever, how long it's going to be. But I've had a good number of people reach out and say that like they miss me and they really want to talk. And I'm just like, we weren't even talking when I was in that volunteer role. Like, I was hosting a meeting every month that you attended along with upwards of 50 other people, but we weren't having like a one-on-one conversation. So I'm not really seeing how you miss me. Like, I would understand you missing like the way that I ran things, like my organization, because I did do everything in a very specific, hyper-organized way, but that's not really what anyone was saying. They were saying like they missed me, like they wanted us to have more one-on-one connection. And I was having a lot of like, oh, I'm calling just to check in on you. I really miss you. I wish that I could come visit. And I'm thinking like, why would you visit me? We are not friends. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And it was, I think because we were connected through church, that made it so much harder to tell people that like, I don't think that we're friends, because in church, a lot of people like, just like, you know, everyone calls each other brother and sister. A lot of people call each other friend, because it's just a kind way to like greet someone and make them feel seen and known, is to be like, hi friend. And I try to be very careful to not call everybody friend, because everybody is not my friend, and we can be kind and cordial with one another, but still not be friends. In particular, I had someone reach out that I had not had a one-on-one conversation with in a good year, that because it had been so long, like there was a lot to catch up on, and they were telling me like how their life had been in the past year. I was telling them how my life had been, and we were catching up with, I was telling them the whole story about how I stepped down because they didn't know. And I ended up on the phone with this person for like longer than an hour. And I had just like put my phone down and was like walking around my house, like doing stuff and just like letting them talk. So I hadn't even like realized how much time was passing, because I was still like working and doing things. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is way too long. I cannot be on the phone with anybody this long. So I said I had to go. And the person was like, oh, well, that's too bad. Can I give you a call tomorrow? And that's when I'm sitting there like, what? I literally just talked to you for so long. Like, what else could you possibly have to say? And so I asked, like, what do you need to talk about, and how long do you need? And they said, oh, I just really enjoy talking to you. So if if you're free and if you feel led, just give me a call. And that was just a very odd sentence to me. I've never said that to anyone. No one's ever said that to me. I'm like, what do you mean if I feel led? I'm never going to just randomly feel led to call you, because you are not my friend. And I just really didn't know how to respond to that. So the next time they called me, I just didn't answer, and I started to just like ignore them. And then they were texting me, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do here? Because I don't want to block people unless they're like being rude and harassing me. And this is like a perfectly kind people that I just am not interested in having conversations with. So I ended up texting this person back and just being very straightforward and saying, I do not have the bandwidth to continue chatting on a regular basis. And they said, okay, how can I pray for you? Which again is very kind. I don't think there's anything malicious with that, but it was just because of the number of calls and texts, and that it had come out of the blue after so like an entire year of not speaking at all. I felt like this person was trying to use the connection of church and the shared faith to force a conversation. And so at that point, I am like, okay, now I'm just done. Like, I don't think that this person is going to understand if I even bother taking the time to explain that like we are totally viewing each other completely different and we're not on the same page. And I feel like if this person had been like a close friend that I grew apart from, and they didn't feel like we had grown apart and we weren't on the same page there, then I think I would feel like I owed them an explanation or a conversation to say like, hey, I really need our relationship to change. But this really was the opposite. Like, it was something where like we had never been friends, we had never been close, And it's like this person wanted to suddenly go from not speaking at all to speaking every day or every other day. And that's just not what I'm interested in doing. So, but I don't feel like I owe them like a long explanation of that, because I am just like, nothing ever happened to get us there or to propel us there. And you also never came out and said that that's what you wanted. You've just been calling a lot and like not leaving messages, which is why I specifically said, like, what do you need and how long do you need to speak to me for? Like, I'm happy to help if there's a specific thing. But then with the response to that being like, oh, I just like talking to you, it's like, okay, well, you know, it's not that I didn't enjoy the conversation, but I have a whole lot of people that I do enjoy talking to, that I do talk to on a regular basis. And I feel like the older I get, I'm finally understanding the like your circle gets smaller as you get older thing. I think when I was younger and people said that to me, I used to think it was because like teenagers haven't been through a whole lot, so their relationships are more surface level. Like, right, like when you're in kindergarten, it's like, oh, your favorite color is also blue too, let's be besties. And then you get to high school and you become friends because you see each other every single day. And even in college, like typically you're friends because you're in class together, you live in the dorm together or something, but like your lives are intertwined because you're in this campus bubble. But then once you become an adult, you really start living life and you go through things and there's ups and downs and so many more emotions. And that's when you learn like who's really going to stick it through with you. And I do think that that is true to an extent. I think that's part of it. But I think more of the difficulty in adult relationships is that we have so much less time. Like when you're sitting in school all day long, or when you're on campus and everybody has like the hours that they're in class, but then the hours to be in the dorm or go to a party or whatever, you're still all in that confined space. Whereas as adults, everybody's spread out. Even if you have a group of friends that all live in the same city, you probably are working in different places, living in different parts of town. And there's just so much more that goes into getting people together to do anything, or even calling somebody on the phone. It's like, if I'm going to talk to you on the phone for an hour, that's an hour that I am not spending writing my book or recording music or watching a TV show that I want to watch. So it's like, is that what I want to do? And I have very close friends who like, yes, I want to talk to them over doing anything. But there are other relationships that feel more like work, where like with, you know, I like my coworkers perfectly fine, but we have working relationships. Like the only time I am engaging in conversation with somebody at work is if it is about work. If they need something from me or if I need something from them, our relationship is mutually beneficial and that we are helping each other get work done. You know, I really only talk to my neighbors if like somebody needs to park an extra car in my driveway, or if like somebody needs to inform the rest of us that somebody backed into the mailbox again, that kind of stuff. But outside of that, we're really not having conversations. And that's not to say that a coworker can't become a friend or that a neighbor can't become a friend. I actually think it's great when that happens. But I also think that it is totally normal and okay for you to have your small circle of people that get the most of your time. And anyone else, like either you're both gonna have to want to put time and energy into getting them into that inner circle, or they're not going to get there, and that's okay. It does suck because I feel like the cost of these realizations can be really difficult, especially because we're not necessarily all in each other's inner circle. Like the list of people that I have that I would drop anything for anytime they call, I know for a fact that I am not on that same list for all of them. So I totally have days where like I'm sad and I want a friend, and I'm like going down my list calling all these people, and like they're not answering, or they do answer but they only have 15 or 20 minutes for me, and they like can totally tell that they don't have the time and energy in the moment that I need them to give, or I'm just not, I view them as a closer friend than they view me, and they just don't want to give that time and energy to me. And it really hurts. It does. It really, really hurts. And then I have to decide, like, is this enough? Like, can I take what they're giving me because that's all that they're giving me, whether it's today or long term? But I think, you know, whether or not it's today or long term, that would also go into informing the decision. But it's like, or do I need to go find somebody else that's going to be a more compatible friend for me because this person is not? Maybe it's just a conversation. It might not even be that you guys are on different pages. It might be that they don't even notice. So that's why I think it's really helpful to start conversations like, hey, do you have the emotional capacity to deal with XYZ? Or to be very clear with your friends of like, I need XYZ to see, like, so that they know. And to also be very clear to say like, hey, I don't feel like we're on the same page here. Can we talk about that? But I think if you're going to have those conversations, you also need to go into it knowing that you guys might be defining things differently. So if you're the person who goes into the conversation to say, I've got something kind of heavy that I need to share, do you have the emotional capacity to handle that? And your friend says yes, they might have a different definition of heavy than you. And whatever you share may be way heavier than what they were actually expecting. And then they're going to panic because they might feel like, oh no, she even asked. Like they asked if they could share something heavy. And I said yes, because I was thinking that they meant this, but actually they meant that. And I actually don't have the capacity for that. And at least in my experience, usually like if I'm the person in the reverse role, like if you asked me, do I have the capacity for that? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then you share the thing and it's like way more than I thought was going to be shared. I usually now don't feel like I can pause and say, hey, I know that I said I have the capacity for this, but I actually don't. I'm so sorry, because I think that that's going to make you feel worse. And also I already agreed and already accepted. And that also becomes a whole other thing. But I've also talked to some friends this week who have like gone through conversations like this where one friend has gone to the other friend to say like, hey, I don't think that we're on the same page. Can we talk about this? And they're like, I feel like you think that we're a lot closer than we are. And the other person was like, I don't agree with you. Like, what are you talking? We're totally on the same page. But they were on different pages, but they were defining closeness differently and what that looked like. And so then they had to go a little deeper with the person to say, okay, this is like what I consider a close friend, best friend in my inner circle. What about you? For the other person to be, oh no, like this is what it is to me. And so like one of them was in that circle for the other person and the other person was not. And then you have to have a conversation about, is that okay with you? Do you need to be considered one of my best friends? Or are you cool with us being more casual acquaintances? Are you insulted by that? And some people cannot handle that. Like some people, it's going to hurt their feelings and they're either going to need to walk away and process it and come back to the conversation, or they're going to just shut down and not bother. And that may end the friendship. And it's like, that's the cost then. Okay, what did I even watch this week? Oh, I did watch the entire first season of Nikita. That's why I got so inspired for my book. Nikita was one of my favorite shows when I was in high school, and I'm going through this phase of like rewatching all my favorite stuff from like my childhood or middle or high school to see, I'm really analyzing like, did I like this because it was good? Or did I like this because I was a child? So like I'm rewatching all the Disney shows. So I like Hannah Montana, I don't think is a good show. I think the music is great, but I don't think that the script or the acting or the show itself is good. But like Wizards and That's So Raven, I think are solid, like family shows, still very funny today. And so I'm kind of doing that also with like all of the early CW shows. And so Nikita was one of my favorite shows. And because it's like espionage based, I wanted to watch it for like inspiration and ideas for my book. And I think season 1 is an absolute start to finish perfect 22 episodes of TV. Like every single episode was perfection to me. They all follow the 5-act structure. Obviously, Maggie Q and Shane West are just like my favorite. I think they're so great together, but I think the showrunner like just knew what they were doing, and it's so good. And it just gave me so many ideas, and I got so excited and so inspired, and I did all this writing, and I'm like, oh, thanks. Thank you for listening. Feel free to leave me a review if you want. New episodes Wednesdays at 6 a.m. Central. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, or you want to chat, send me an email at realhonestpod@gmail.com. Okay, bye.
I'm not here to sugarcoat, life's already a bumpy road. Too much shelter causes pain, let's just be real honest. Things are gonna knock you down, avoidance will not help you out. Let's talk it through, here me and you, let's keep it real honest.